Welcome back to Boys and Ghouls Film Review, folks. I'm your host, Sarah Stephenson. This is my co-host, Mike Stephenson.
Hi, guys.
If my voice sounds kind of funny, it's still getting over a teeny-weeny of a cold, okay?
She's had a small touch of the flu or something or other. No coronavirus here. We've tested ourselves, doing a rapid test, if you call them that in America, I do not know, or in England, or whoever else is listening. Yeah, it's a little home test kit we use. Anyway, no, we're okay.
So, the movie we're going to be reviewing tonight is The Last Samurai that was released in 2003.
It's a Tom Cruise movie. Yeah.
Well, seeing as Tom Cruise
Tom's okay.
Tom Cruise is doing 2 other movies, releasing them
As we speak.
What's
it's going to be?
one is called Top Gun,
sequel?
Maverick, I think it was.
In Search for More Money? No.
And the other one is called The Mission Impossible, I think. I'm not sure.
Another Mission Impossible 93 or whatever.
Again, I'm not. I don't. Unlike other movies, Tom Cruise's movies I don't really keep track of or keep tabs on.
We do enjoy them. Don't get me wrong. I do like Tom Cruise in some movies. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I like Mission Impossible movies because of the action and that sort of stuff.
The first 2 are not too bad, but I haven't kept tabs on the other few that came out.
I like it. It's like James Bond movies. I think I've seen every James Bond movie except maybe for the last one.
Yeah, and I've seen Legend, obviously, but
Legend, that wasn't bad.
Not too bad.
He's been in a lot of good movies over the years, but he's not my favourite actor. But he's in a lot of good movies. How's that?
True. So anyway, this is the movie we're going to do with it, and I know it's out of our usual genre.
No, it's not. We do horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and other movies that we think are good enough to be reviewed.
Yeah.
But we concentrate on horror and sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, and this does dabble with a little bit of martial arts, and I have a good knowledge of that.
Yeah, this one here used to be used to do karate a few years back and got up to brown belt status. Not too bad. She actually sparred me one day and started me...
No, don't go there.
...having kidney stones. Ever since she hit me in the kidneys, I have had a bad kidney. She was very, very good.
Thanks for sharing that to everyone, Mike.
Oh, you know, when you hear... I go to the toilet and you hear... Tickle to tickle, and that's a kidney stone falling in the bottom toilet. And...
Very good, Mike. Thanks for letting the audience know of your bile problem.
It's not bile. It's
Bile.
a kidney stone. Well, it's stones. I can't even see them when they come out.
Anyway, who directs, scriptwrites, and stars in this movie?
Okay. The Last Samurai, 2003, epic period action drama film. Covers a few genres there. Now, produced by Tom Cruise, Paula Wagner, Scott Kroft, Marshall Herskovich, Edward Zwick, I think that's the right pronunciation. Sorry, Edward, if I got it wrong. And Tom Engelman. Now, directed by Edward. I won't say his name again. I might annoy him. Story by John Logan. Screenplay by John Logan and Edward and Marshall Herskovich. Now, this is what I like. Budget $140 million. Box office $457 million. It made a few bucks. Now, so I was talking to Sarah earlier on. She said that Tom Cruise, as far as she's aware, didn't take a paycheck for this because obviously being a producer and stuff, he took a percentage of the action. So he risked getting it off the box office, which is interesting.
Yeah. And
blah, 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 blah.
Also, this movie in the box office, it box office in Japan. This movie made more money at the box office in Japan than it did in the United States.
However, as a whole, I mean, I think they liked the movie, but there was some criticisms about they romanticised the samurai a little bit too much because their history about samurais makes them a little bit more nasty and a bit more brutal and self-serving and arrogant and stuff than they weren't these spiritual guys made out in lots of the movies. They weren't like the Jedi Knights, okay? So they had a few problems. Now, one thing before we get into it, this is a fictional story, but it's based on a real time in Japan's history.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called the Satsuma Rebellion, led by Sego Takamori, and it had something to do with the westernisation of Japan's culture.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I think it was called the Meiji Restoration period in the 19th century Japan. Rest of it romanticised stuff for the story, but it was based on that sort of period. Yeah, it done pretty good. There was something else there. It also was influenced by the stories of Jules Brunet, a French army captain who fought alongside Oromoto Takayati in the earlier Bosnian War, and to a lesser extent Frederick Townsend Ward, an American mercenary who helped westernise the Chinese army by forming the ever victorious army.
Wow.
There you go. So you got so a lot of stuff was taken out of history to make a fictional story.
Yes, quite right.
Yeah, how's that right about? So it feels real, and that's what I say about Sarah many times. You can make a fictional movie, but it's got to feel real, and this does feel real. It does take you to 19th century China, whatever, 19th century, 18th century, whatever, China when they go for this Reformation period. About the 1876 period, whatever. Now that period there, it feels like it. It's like those other, what's those movies you saw of Jet Li and other movies where it went back and had when they're doing martial arts and stuff.
Well, the one I can think of is Forbidden Kingdom. I think that one is.
Yeah,
but that one's that was more of a fictional take on Japan's culture here and there.
That one we had to do the karate. When they had to,
which one are you referring to, Mike? I'm not even sure which one you're talking about.
It was one of the ones. Remember, there's only one type of tea. Remember one type of karate?
Oh, you mean Fearless?
Fearless, yeah. They had the same sort of feel, and that was a period type movie too.
That was a historic story about a real kung fu master. I'm not sure if it was kung fu, to be honest.
Kung fu, taekwondo, no, that was a stick. That sticks, isn't it?
Again, as I said before, there is many different martial arts as there are different types of teas
but when
out
you get
there.
a good feel, to me, and actually the funny part is, it wasn't filmed in Japan.
No, it isn't. Filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah. All the sceneries mainly in New Zealand, and some of the village shots were done in California in the back lot of Warner Studios. Okay, apart from that, let's go through a couple of the actors therein. Tom Cruise, plays Captain Nathan Algren, a Civil War and Indian war veteran, haunted by his role in the massacre of Native American Indians. He gets a job handed to him by his old commander to go over and make an army out of these poor Japanese peasants.
Yeah.
He has an assistant.
Yeah, not a really good one anyway.
Played by Billy Connolly.
Yeah, I feel sorry for his role in this one. It's very short.
He did good.
He only appeared in, say, the first act, and then he gets killed off.
Yeah. Anyway, I won't say too much about it. Ken Watanabe, I think that's the right. I never know how to say Ken's name properly. He plays the leader of the samurai people. He plays a really good role in this. Fantastic. I like him. He's got something about him when he gets into a role, Ken. Now, Kayuki Kato plays Taka, the widow of one of the samurais that Tom Cruise killed in the early part of the movie, and she has to nurse him back to health.
And she falls in love with him.
She sort of slowly falls in love, deep respect for him, that sort of stuff, yeah. I won't go into too many other people because I can't say the bloody names.
Try that small guy from Harry Potter type character.
He doesn't have a Japanese name. I can say that one.
I know, but just
Tony Goldwyn plays Colonel Bagley, who plays Nathan Algren, Tom Cruise's former commanding officer.
Think of
who
Custard.
He hates.
Yeah, think of Custard, the total jerkwad.
Yeah. Well, Tom Cruise hates this guy with a vengeance. Now, Timothy Small, he was in Harry Potter, Sweeney Todd. Yeah, he plays he plays an interesting role. He's well known, but I can't go through all the other people's names because I can't pronounce their bloody names. They're all Japanese, but there's no disrespect meant whatsoever. I just don't want to insult them trying to say their names. But everybody in the role, and even the guys who did the martial arts or the sword play, they were real martial arts guys.
Wow, cool.
So I read up. Most of them, I believe most of them were. It wasn't choreographed that way. They actually knew how to do martial arts.
Yeah, except for Tom Cruise. He had to learn for 9 months.
Yeah, he had to learn. He had to train. But all the other the Japanese guys, they were martial arts guys who knew how to fight with sword and other.
Yeah, so Tom Cruise had to learn for 9 months about the proper way to wield a sword and wrestle, and probably all the other stuff that samurai had to do.
Yeah, that's what's up. So he covered it well, as Tom does. Anyway, I can't think of anything else. Do you want to take it away and start telling the story?
Yes. So the story begins as Tobin narrates in this movie. He starts off saying that the Japan was created by a sword that was dipped in water and the droplets turned into the islands of Japan. But to him, he says, that Japan was created by a group of men who because they fought
it made Japan what it is.
Make Japan as it was.
Their enthusiasm, their bravery, their dedication, that sort of stuff.
And for honor, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Then we cut to Kasemoto. He's a leader of a samurai group in his small village, and he sort of has a vision of a premonition, if you will, of the future, where he sees a white tiger fighting against a group of samurai, and the
tiger's winning, obviously.
Yeah, and then he opens his eye, and then we cut to the title cards, The Last Samurai. Then we cut to America, where Captain or ex-captain Algren, who's just taking part in a sort of
carnival
show, if you will, where it demonstrates the Winchester rifle.
Yeah, and he's doing telling a story of the battle he was in, and
the Great
blah
Recall
blah blah, and he's just enchanted. He's an alcoholic by now.
Yeah,
he's over it.
And he develops post-traumatic stress, which at that time, back then, people don't have any way of doing.
Undiagnosed back in those days.
Undiagnosed, that sort of thing. I imagine a lot of people, even before this war and other wars before this, they probably developed post-traumatic stress, but there was no way of diagnosis then.
I'll suck it up. That
suck
was
it up and do your job.
You see a lot of horrors in wars, whether it's especially look. I don't want to talk about wars, but if you were fighting hand-to-hand combat,
yes,
I'm not talking about rifles at 400 metres or something rather, or dropping bombs on people. I mean actually hand-to-hand combat. In the thick of it, like the Knights did and everybody else, you would be there. Every blow would either I will kill somebody or that person will kill me, and that would be, to me, scarring mentally.
Yes, it would be, Mike. While most people out there would say, "Buck it up, you're a man," all that stuff. But no matter how big you are, or no matter how muscles you have, it will change you. War does change a person.
It do.
Anyway, back to this story. He does a demonstration with a rifle, shoots.
And he's very, very good.
And then causes a scene, and I guess he got fired from his last job. Because the guy is getting fed up with his drunkenness and his misbehavior and his attitude. Anyway, he meets up with his Irish friend, who was also in the army with him. What's his name?
Played by Billy Connolly. He's got a funny name here. What's his name? I haven't got it written down here. That'll be right.
That'll be right.
No, I dropped off some of the people. But dare I say, Billy Connolly played this role.
Yeah, so...
He gets killed off pretty quick, so he's not important.
Billy tells him about an upcoming job that his colonel and the Japanese businessman...
Japanese, not Japs. That's how rude.
Japanese businessman offering him. So... And which is asking him to kill some local rebel samurai in Japan.
He was asked to go to Japan and build an army.
Yes.
Okay, train the peasants to be soldiers.
And to fight against the samurai who are rebelling against them.
His job was actually to train them.
Yeah.
That came later.
Yeah, he isn't too serious about it, and the
don't
colonel is like, "Buck it up! I've been at the great big horn, yada yada."
Battle of the big horn and stuff.
It hasn't affected me very much. But
he's probably in the background, sitting on the hill, watching the people do the job. That's why. Yeah,
he doesn't really care who it was.
Yeah, it's really funny. The cannon fodder are always in the front line, and all the guys sending them out are in the back lines where they can't get shot or bombed or hurt or anything. And they say, "Oh, I had a hard day today. I got a blister on my bum."
Yeah. Anyway,
not very nice.
Yeah. Anyway, Algren tells him that he'll kill anyone he is demanded to shoot, but he would do the colonel for free.
Yes.
So we then cut to him on a boat, and he's writing in his journal, narrating that there's nothing to. There's a bit of enjoyment out of being on the ocean because there's no past, no future, no worries.
It's just there.
It's just there. Nothing to expect from it.
Good place to meditate. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he arrives in Japan where he meets the emperor, and the emperor asks him a number of questions about the Indians that he fought, and they were pretty much interesting questions, like questions about how did they really paint their faces and did they show no fear. And of course, Algren says they were very brave men. Unlike his colonel who says they're savages, type of thing. It's not nice calling another race of people savages. It's not right.
I think it's a very careless word to banter around.
Yeah, I always think that the opposite side
the American Indian
can be savages.
Well, I don't want to get into a racial thing here, but the American Indian guys were called savages because they lived differently. Mm-hmm. No one ever took the time to figure out what their culture was about. They said, "That's their savages. Let's kill them." Mm-hmm. That's all right. And they called these Japanese people, the samurai and other people, savages as well.
Yeah, not right.
They didn't understand their culture. Yeah. Not good.
Yeah. So as they start training the Japanese peasants how to hold a gun and wheel it, and of course most of the time they can't even shoot.
Can't shoot straight.
Shoot straight. Most of the time, the very feel of the gun is really hard to shoot.
Honestly, but I've used firearms years ago.
Okay.
There's a trick to it.
Okay.
Okay. You do it slowly. And I don't mean slowly. You do not jerk the trigger. You hold your firearm as still as possible. You use your sights. You do not pull the trigger. You squeeze the trigger. Just increase the pressure. If you pull the trigger, you jerk it and you lose your sights. Mm-hmm. If you pull the trigger slowly by squeezing it instead of actually pulling it, you won't move your sights. And that's where a lot of those people didn't know. They said, "Oh, I'm going to pull the trigger." No. And the handguns are terrible. Yeah. Rifle's more accurate over a longer distance, but these handguns show one person shooting there with a handgun, one handed across the field shooting somebody. Highly improbable.
Yeah, another thing about these rifles is that apart from the first shot, which is you can probably do in your sleep.
These are front-loading jobs too. You put the powder in and stuff, one at a time sort of thing.
It's, every time you shoot, then you have to reload and add the bullet, thing like that. Instead of just have it like a magazine thrust into the hilt.
Even side loading would be nice. You pull a bullet in, pull the trigger, put another bullet in. But no, the old black powder jobs, very slow and tedious.
Yeah, anyway, back to the story. Algren asks another general who's also who is an ex-samurai, or not ex-samurai. He is a samurai.
He has been a samurai. He still is. Yes. He just doesn't act as a samurai anymore. Yeah. He's working with the Japanese government.
Yeah, he tells them that he used to work with Quasimodo.
Quasimodo. That's not very nice. He's not a hunchback.
I'm saying it's K is silent.
His name is Katsumoto.
So he asked him the questions like, did they use rifles or firearms? And of course, the samurai, they practice traditional fighting techniques.
Swords, bows and arrows, daggers, whatever they use.
And wear armour. And of course, his Irish friend jokes and says, "Oh, they're still wearing armour." Well, technically, while the Irish were still wearing loincloth in their old days, the samurai, they developed their own armor years advanced than they did before they did.
I don't know if it's made out of leather or wood or a combination of wood and leather and stuff, but it's heavy garments to help protect them from the blows. So that wasn't perfect, no.
Yeah, and
it wasn't Darth Vader's uniform based on samurai?
Yes, it was, Mike.
Yeah,
Quite.
Yeah, I thought it was.
It does.
Similarities.
Yeah, similar the way the hat's shaped.
And his tunic and different things, and because he wore something like a long robe, didn't he?
Yeah, and so did the Jedis would wear white long robes or any type of robes.
Yeah, a bit like Japanese culture.
Yeah, I think that's probably where all the those
I think
types
George is studying theology or something or other, or something I can't remember now.
I learned that sort of stuff too.
Saying something else, he had an idea about it.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. He then goes on. What's the tiny guy again? The Harry Potter guy's name again?
Timothy Spall's name.
And what's his character's name?
Frodo Frog.
Don't be rude.
Simon Graham.
Simon Graham. He's a writer, and he accompanies Algren and the character.
He wants to write about what's happening in Japan.
He wants to write about people's lives.
Yeah,
not lives, lies.
Yeah, lies. Yeah,
I don't know.
No, he's there to write about people's lives. Yeah. That was a bit of a joke. But politicians and people haven't changed for thousands of years.
He's also he wants to write a book about the samurai, but the samurai, they're very secretive. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to tell their stories.
No.
However,
that changed a bit later on.
Yeah, eventually. And he then asks Algren about about how the Indians scalp.
Yeah, he just had it. Yeah, and he told him very vividly,
very detailed,
and that turned him right off scalping stories.
Yeah, we then get when they're out of the room. We get a flashback to Algren's past, where it shows him fighting in the small battles, and after they killed all the warriors, the Indian warriors, they were told to go down to their little encampment and kill the women and children and all the inhabitants.
And Algren didn't like it, but his boss, who sent him to Japan, was the guy who gave the orders. I'm just doing my orders. I don't care, and he killed innocent women and children, and Algren could not handle this. That's why he hit the grog and suffered post-traumatic stress and different things.
And the next day they were teaching the Japanese to shoot the gun, and he got one of them to finally shoot straight because
he says bung the rifle butt into your shoulder firmly, hold that, and just run your eye along the sights there, point to point, hold it and squeeze it, and he got it close to the bullseye. The first person, the whole lot of them, to get anywhere near the bullseye.
Then his colonel and the Japanese businessman who works for the emperor, I should say, approach him and say, "We're going to start our advance tomorrow."
Because Katsumoto was he attacking railways?
He was attacking the railways.
And they want to stop him?
They want to stop him because the railways affect the Japanese businessman's
trade
interest.
And stuff. Business interest and trade and whatever.
But of course they're not ready. They don't know how to shoot straight. And
so Tom Cruise said, "Okay, I'll stand in front of one of the targets," and he ordered one of the guys to shoot him. And if he doesn't shoot him, he would shoot the guy off the rifle. And
the guy shook. He was scared.
And he loaded the gun and he pointed at Tom Cruise and missed. Not a near miss, a long miss. And he said, "See, they're not ready."
But the colonel still sent them out, despite the fact they can't shoot or aim.
They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
Which is, to me and to Mike here, is unreasonable business. Uncoordinated.
I mean, safety. Look, if you've got something like 2,000 people with guns or rifles shooting at a group of guys running at you and something like 500, sure, some of those bullets are going to miss their mark. And I shot that guy. I shot the guy behind him accidentally. Well, someone's going to die.
Yeah.
But it can be a lot of a waste of ammunition.
Exactly. And considering that those guns we've mentioned, you can shoot once, but you have to refill and add the little gunpowder.
They should have given them some Winchester cartridge ones, because they had They had them. That's what he was using at the
he was.
carnival thing.
But maybe it was just the first.
That was the gun they supplied the Japanese. So we got army surplus. He was flogged it off to the Japanese. No.
Yeah.
They should have sold the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Back to our story. They then march, to the likely place where the samurai are about to hit, and of course, Colonel What's-He-Face tells Algren, we must leave because we're going to leave the Japanese general and his other middle rank guys to look after them, and we'll go on our merry way because we were only there just to train them and to do nothing. Yeah. So, but Algren feels differently because
so you're going to help them. You're going to lead the battle charge, and his little mate Billy Connolly. He had a really name, something Gant. Zebulon Gant, I think his name was.
Zebulon Gant. He's a civilian and he cannot.
Well, he's a retired soldier, and he said, "I'm not going anywhere." He says, "I'm staying right here with you," and he copped it. He got speared or something or other.
Yeah. Anyway, as the samurai get closer, it's all cloudy, probably foggy and stuff, and they start attacking, and of course they start shooting. Algren tells them not to shoot, but they shot anyway.
They panicked.
Yeah, and
they weren't soldiers.
And they try to reload really fast, but too late. They came riding on horses really fast.
Yeah, well, the old steamroller approach. He goes going there really hard and fast, and the guys weren't prepared for it. And a couple of the samurai got shot. Yeah, they did. But they did a lot more damage to the conscripts.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and they won technically.
Yeah, I mean, there was even a scene where, as Algren is, he takes one of the samurai's flags that has a spear on the end, and he tries to attack 4 other samurai in a circle.
Who were trying to kill him.
And this is the scene from the
Katsumoto's
vision. He saw the tiger fighting against,
and the flag on the end of this pole was this white tiger he saw. Okay.
And he gets exhausted, and and this red samurai, wearing a red uniform, I should say, approaches him, and he plans on killing him with his own weapon.
And his last bit of effort, Algren
takes the spear and
shoved it straight up in between his vest and his helmet, straight into his throat, and killed him. Yeah. What a good aim. Yeah. So he was a real soldier's guy. Yeah.
And the other samurai were about to kill him,
And Katsumoto said, no. This guy's interesting. Yes.
Yeah, he bounds him up and they take him away. And before we get to the village, the samurai general I mentioned, who didn't take part in the war in this one because he refused to fight against.
The samurai general who was working for the emperor, that guy,
Yeah, he refused to take part
He didn't want to fight his friend.
So he takes out a knife and he stabs himself.
I know what they got a name for it. I can't remember. Some people call it harry-carry. Well, they kill each other. Yeah, they kill themselves out of honour. Yeah.
So he takes out a knife and they all surround him, and Katsumoto stands above him with his samurai sword, and as he stabs himself into the chest, Katsumoto takes a sword and cuts off his head.
Yeah, well, he actually stabbed his stuff in the stomach.
Yeah,
stabs himself in the stomach. And when he bent over a little bit, he lopped his head off. Yeah. So he won't come back as a vampire.
Yeah, funny. Not really. I mean,
works for me.
Anyway, we then cross to the village, and Algren is lowered to the ground off his horse, and one of the samurai wants to take his sword and cut his head off too, but Algren doesn't seem to flinch.
He didn't flinch. He just sits there and looks at him.
Yeah,
didn't move a muscle.
Didn't care or less.
I'm not scared. Mm-hmm. Kill me, don't care.
Yeah, Katsumoto then tells him, "This is my son's village, and we're deep in the mountains, and you cannot escape." Yeah. In those words, and
he's out in the middle of nowhere, and wind was going to set in shortly too.
Yeah, true.
And so the pass will be, pardon the pun, impossible.
Yeah, he also takes from Algren a couple of his notebooks,
yeah.
that inside an Indian, knitted bag.
It'll look like one of the little bags. I used to have one when I was younger, when I used to go to work.
Yeah.
One over my shoulder.
So,
I was a hippie.
So while Algren is resting up, he's resting in Taka's, Kotsumoto's sister's house.
Kotsumoto's sister?
Yeah, sister.
It was her house, and that was her husband that
In the red armour.
Algren killed with the guy in the red armour. So she was actually nursing the man who killed her husband. That would have been very stressful.
Yeah. Anyway, while this is happening, Katsumoto is studying the books that Algren had and understood
Yeah,
how
that's
to
interesting.
understand
See, they
his
try to make
enemy.
it serious. You got a Japanese guy who lives up in the mountains. There's a samurai can read English. See, they weren't stupid. They weren't.
Well,
They were learned.
Katsumoto was also a teacher to the emperor.
Yes,
I don't know if he learnt English. Maybe he did, actually.
They might have learned a second language. Yes,
He may have learnt it to teach the emperor about English Western
maybe,
cultures.
possibly. But English wasn't the national language then.
That's true.
French was, I think. Interesting. Anyway,
back to the story.
Let's go along.
So,
along with it.
Algren slowly on the mend. He's sort of he has a hard time with it because he keeps dreaming of the past. And
he's having nightmares. He'd been suffering from nightmares from his trauma, from killing all the Indians and stuff.
Yeah, and he yells out in his sleep, "I told you!" Meaning he's screaming at the colonel for what you've done.
Yeah. Anyway,
he then revives and he eventually heads outside and he walks about. He then meets up with Kosemo and he talks to him.
it sounds like you should be ringing a bell when you say it.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time, especially with this cold of mine. Anyway, they talk a bit and it's a very short conversation. They do this a lot in this.
Hello, what is your name? Nice conversation. See you later. Bye.
Yeah. Anyway, he then asks him about the woman who tends him and the man in the armor he killed, and he realized that that's the most biggest error he did, killing a woman's husband whom she's trying to who's help.
Well, it wasn't an error. He was a soldier. He was in battle, and she didn't like it. But in the end, she realized, well, he was a soldier doing his job, and her husband was a soldier samurai doing his job, and one of them was going to die.
Yeah. He then heads back to her house and they eat some dinner. And later on, the little boys, her oldest of the sons, they are practicing with their fake toy samurai swords.
They use wooden sticks like swords. They practice with hurt each other. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the eldest son is angry at Algren for killing his father, and I can't blame him for that.
Oh, that's okay.
Anyway, he then takes up the toy sword himself, and he tries to sword fight with him. And eventually, one of the older samurai teacher.
He's a nasty dude.
He's a nasty one.
He hates Algren. He's the guy who tried to kill him before.
Yeah, he was the one who even suggested before, when he was unwell, to kill him but Kosimoto wants to learn from his enemy.
Yeah, exactly right. You take your enemy, you learn.
Yes.
I learned, Mr. Faulty. I learned.
Yes.
Hey, by the way, at this point in time, Tom Cruise, or Algren, doesn't know how to speak Japanese. He gradually learns bits and pieces and becomes semi-fluent in it.
Yeah. Anyway, eventually the samurai guy beats him and he falls on his face. And while this is happening later on, he's walking back through the forest. He has a guard that guards him, and he calls him Bob.
Because he can't speak Japanese, neither doesn't speak English.
They call him the silent monk or silent samurai.
And he doesn't say anything for the whole movie. And so he says, "I'll call you Bob."
Yeah, he doesn't talk very much.
But I think in the end he started to like him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's just doing his job as a guard. Yeah.
He then meets up with Kasimoto again at the temple. He meets him up in the temple, several times.
Yeah, Katsumoto used to spend a lot of time praying and meditating.
Yeah, and he asks him about how he learnt the sword and how who he was in his army. Was he a general or a colonel? He was a captain.
He said that's middle rank.
Yeah, he seems new
because he liked the way he fought.
Yeah.
When he saw him fighting his men off, he thought he was a good warrior. Yeah.
He then asks him about who was your general in the army, and he says General Custer.
Oh, I know this name.
Yeah, he killed many weapons,
good leader. And Tom Algren says, no, he wasn't. He's an arrogant so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. We
fell in love with his legend.
Yeah, and he took a handful of men to fight thousands of Indians. It was going to be a massacre. Yeah,
It was a massacre, all right. And he lost, as I recall, in the book. I've read somewhere that his final stand, he lost.
Custer's last stand, he lost. Yeah, I think it was a little bighorn. I mean, Stan, I don't know. I don't know American history. I think it was a little bighorn. That was Custer's last stand, and they were decimated. I believe. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. Our American listeners would know better.
Talk about backing the wrong horse.
Arrogant people like that should not be in charge of men. If it's going to be that stupidly weighted in the opposition's favour, they shouldn't have gone into battle.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story. He then says he must be a good general, but of course Algren disagrees because he thinks he's a murderer. Anyway, he then demands, why is he here? And of course, Katsumoto doesn't really give him a straight answer, obviously.
Yeah. He wants to learn from him, so he's not going to tell him that, is he? No, I want to pick your brain.
Yeah, or something like that.
Well, that's he wants to get to know him and know about his culture and talk about war strategies and whatever, and pick up what he can get from American culture to understand his enemy.
Yeah. So meanwhile, he's right. Algren is writing his journal again, but he doesn't have a date in mind or a year.
He hasn't got a calendar.
Yeah, so he decides to just say day 1 or day 2. And
I think the year is. That's about as close as he got.
Yeah, so he uses the time to watch the other samurai, watch life around him.
And try to learn he was learning about their culture while he was there. He's just watching them and how they train to perfection in every aspect of their lives.
Yeah.
Now, that may not be true in the real world, but in this movie it is.
Yeah. He then, so he ends up learning the sword from some of the samurai, and which he's doing quite well. Of course, he's still being bullied by one of the head samurai
the head
guys.
guy who wants to kill him challenges another duel a bit later on, and he matches him. And that surprises everybody. He can't their standard.
Yeah, he also is given better. He gets proper clothing to
they
wear.
gave him Japanese clothes to wear instead of these Western clothes.
Yeah, which I will tell you guys. When you're wearing clothing like that, especially if you're into martial arts, it's very much more easy to move.
Yeah, you move. It's very loose fitting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree, and I feel like it's more comfortable when you think about it. Yeah.
Well, I've never worn
and looser.
I've never wore a gi or anything else, so I'll take your word for it.
Anyway, so he gets when he's also more welcomed by the older son and the younger son.
He's starting to gain their respect because they realise he's not a nasty man. He's a nice man.
Yeah.
He's just a soldier like their father was. And I think some of the townsfolk are starting to warm him, or tolerating him better. How's that? Not liking him, but he's not the scum of the earth now.
No.
Yeah.
He also gets the attention of Taka. And she begs to her brother to have him killed, or let him leave her house.
Because he's having trouble looking after the man who killed her husband still.
Yeah, she feels it's shameful. In her eyes, it's shameful to have him here. But then one day he helped her pick up some of the stuff that
she was bringing a load of water or something into the house, and he helped her.
And she says, "This is not Japanese men are not allowed to do this."
He said, "I'm not Japanese."
Yeah. He then says, "I'm sorry for hurting your husband."
Yeah.
And
by now he'd picked up a few words of Japanese.
Yeah. And she says, he did what he did his duty, and you did your duty.
So she was accepting it.
She's learning to accept it.
Yeah, which is nice. Isn't that lovely?
And this is where, when he learns eventually how to coordinate his movements more in samurai, and in that one, he even learned from Kasimoto's son. He says not to have too many minds.
Yeah, which means don't let your mind have too many things going on.
Yeah.
Concentrate on what you're doing. You know, like using the Force, Luke, that sort of thing. Yeah. So don't let other stuff disturb you. Just concentrate on the matter at hand. Feel what's going on. What's your opponent's body language and stuff. Forget everything else.
Yeah, this is what I learned when I was in karate.
Yeah,
they told me to mind your opponent's movements.
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
watch their eye. Yeah. Watch their eye.
And watch their eye, man, because they're usually going to look where they're going to hit.
Yeah.
And if they turn their body on a particular angle, they're going to lead from the left or the right, or they're going to get ready to do a kick or something. Yeah, is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to mind their body movement. Yeah,
so he learnt to still his mind and concentrate on what he was doing, fighting that person in front of him, and he became very good at it.
Yeah. Later on, during a ceremony, I guess a special ceremony.
No, I think it's some entertainment they're doing.
Entertainment.
They didn't have television and radio up there, so they're having a little stage
thing,
comedy thing, whatever. Yeah.
And some ninjas, I guess, hired by the
Emperor's offsider.
He's offsider. They enter their little farm area,
and they want to kill Katsumoto. That way, it doesn't stop any wars or fights or anything, incursions. Or
quickly, they try to get into their houses, and Algren tries to help Kasimoto.
He does. He fights alongside of Kasimoto. Katsumoto.
Yeah.
You make me say it now.
Yeah, and they do really well together. They fight like a team.
They become friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He saved his life.
And he saved his family's life too.
Yeah, he did.
From getting hurt. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the next morning, Katsumoto makes a plan of going to the Emperor's kingdom to talk to him.
No, it was granted free patch so he could talk, because he was going to be part of a committee to discuss the way Japan was heading at that point. He wanted, no good sitting up there
in the
in
farm
his
area,
village, but he wanted to be accepted into the committee to discuss things. And he said, you can come here and discuss things with us, but you leave your sword outside. And he refuses to leave his sword outside because that's part of who he is.
And seeing as this was a year, Algren was up in the farm place
6 months at least through the winter.
For a full year or something.
Or less.
Yeah, or less.
Maybe half a year. Like through the winter was so
And now they've gotten some more Japanese soldiers, and they have more trained better or
the conscripts that come up there, they were like real soldiers now.
Yeah.
Good training over 6 months.
Yeah. And quite different from the ones that they sent up and tried to.
And they got some extra equipment in. They got some howitzers in there.
Yeah, very big weapons.
And Gatling guns. Howitzers and Gatling guns, I think. But the Gatling guns, those repeaters.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the other howitzers. Anyway, they had cannons.
They had houses and they had the Gatling gun.
I think whatever.
Yeah, so they were a bit surprised when they saw Algren return, and when they later have a meeting with him briefly, they ask him about Katsumoto's if his requests. Does he want weapons? Does he want any arms? Or how many samurai are at his beck and call? Or not his beck and call.
Algren didn't say it too much. I was a prisoner. I didn't see it much.
No, he didn't. Practically.
He didn't want to betray them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, they plan on having a new contract with Algren to lead the new soldiers
into battle.
To battle.
Meanwhile, Katsumoto is actually has been arrested, and he's expected to commit harikari or whatever it's called, and they'll be a waste of a good man. Yeah,
his son, meanwhile, gets his top knot cut off.
His top knot was cut off. That was so. Yeah, that was so disrespectful. Japanese police soldiers were being disrespectful to the samurai.
You would think that was disrespectful to anyone.
Well, that was part of their culture. That's like spitting on them and stuff. And
I hate it when two people from the same community would just do that.
Yeah.
I just think that's disgraceful.
Intimidation. Yeah.
It's intimidation and horrible. I won't go into that. Anyway, Algren makes a plan with some of the samurai to rescue Katsumoto from being executed, or not really executed.
He was being requested to kill himself. That's out of honour.
Yeah.
That's how they did it. You do the honourable thing and commit suicide.
Yeah, so he gets his little friend, the writer guy, to become speak for him or pretend to speak for him.
And he said, we've been authorised to take pictures of Katsumoto before he departs this life, and yada yada yada. And they sneak in there.
Yeah, under the scrutiny that Algren is the president of the United States.
Yeah, well, the Japanese guys didn't know. Hey, all American look alike.
Well, then again, they just saw a picture.
Sorry, Japanese people.
I thought it was hilarious, that part.
No, it was funny, yeah. It's, but he sort of, the president, this guy had no idea. Okay. So,
anyway.
In all sincerity, the guy wasn't a silly man, but how would he know? Yeah.
Oh, true. Anyway, they head inside the
Katsumoto's cell,
and Algren tries to persuade him to escape. And it didn't take too
How
long.
am I going to do this? And he hits clunk outside where some of the guards hit the deck.
Yeah, and one of the samurai, the other one I mentioned, that was an enemy of Algren at the beginning, but he was there to help.
Yeah,
and Katsumoto suggests to the young little writer to come and take photos of his village, and maybe learn a few things.
Yeah, so he was invited to learn. Yeah, so he went with them. Anyway,
yeah,
but anyway, Katsumoto's son was there, and this mean swordsman guy, and they all helped in his escape.
Yeah, of course, his son makes the ultimate sacrifice
He dies.
by taking his arrows and shooting at the soldiers.
Well,
and I got to admit, the arrow is faster than the bullet.
Tell you what, though, this guy. I mean, I know it was a movie.
I know it's a movie
but
too.
I have seen these guys, not samurai, but guys who are really good at bows and arrows like that. Mm-hmm. They can get those off pretty quick.
That's what I mean.
So there's a bit about Robin Hood and these other people. They were trained to go whack, 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 whack. And you go, what the hell? And they are very fast.
Well, I got to admit,
no reloading.
Yeah, that's what I mean. With the arrow, it's just a matter of getting your hand into position and bam, right into your opponent.
Properly, letting it go properly. But yeah, there's no powder, there's no bullets, there's no nothing.
Yeah,
just
there's
whack. Probably 1 second every second and a half. You're letting fly another arrow. Mm-hmm. Where the other guys are stoking their guns of powder and balls and stuff and everything.
And stuffing it with that weird sticky thing.
Well, that's a ramrod or whatever it's called. Whatever it's called. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story.
Go on.
So his son makes the ultimate sacrifice, and the rest of them escape into the woods.
Anyway, this is dragging on. It's a long movie.
Yeah, Katsumoto thinks that he's sad that he's lost his son, and maybe he should die with honor and all that stuff, and in order to please the emperor and all that stuff, because if the emperor demands if he took his life, he will obligedly do it.
So Katsumoto was still in this movie, still respected the emperor.
Yeah, he
but
loved
not
him.
What was happening in Japan?
Yeah, he objects to all this change.
Yeah, too much change too quickly. Mm-hmm. They're leaving the old ways behind, their culture, their heritage, and I think that was the underlying theme of the movie. They're leaving all the old ways behind and westernising it at too great a pace.
Anyway,
whatever.
Algren arranges with him to plan their next stage of attack, and he goes to later on to Tokakaka and tell her about the bad news that her nephew's dead and everything, and that there will be another assault on the enemy soldiers. And at first, she is a little grievous about what's going to happen, and her son is a little sad about what's happened. Algren assumes that he's still angry at him for killing his father.
No, but he's angry at that, but he's still angry further that he may lose Algren as well now, because he's going to like Algren and respect him and stuff. He doesn't want to lose him either.
He then approaches him and the son tells him about how his father told him once that dying in battle is a great honor.
Yeah,
But
it's a great day to die.
To a child's eyes, it's a scary thing.
Can we skip over the battle scene?
I know.
We don't need a blow-by-blow description of the battles coming up.
I just wanted to say.
Otherwise, it'll take 2 hours of the podcast.
I just like this part because.
Saying.
And Algren explains to him that he was always scared of going into battle, and
it's always good to do it scared because you put you on edge a bit more.
And the kid is confused because he's an adult. You would think it was a great honor, but even adults can be scared.
Yeah, doing it scared doesn't. You know you've got to do it.
Yeah.
So you're going to be a little bit scared. It gives you a bit of an edge, maybe.
Aldrin.
Yeah. If you say I'm not scared, you're lying, or you're stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Aldrin gives him a hug and tells him that things will be okay.
Yeah.
And then we cross over to Aldrin and Cosimo explaining what to do in this battle. And they talk about an older battle that happened years ago with 1,000 Greeks, Spartans.
The movie 300 where those...
Yeah.
I can't remember the 300 Spartans, whatever, were fighting off thousands of the Greek army or something or other, and they held this peninsula, and they died, but they took a hell of a lot of the enemy with them. Only 300 men or something or other against thousands upon thousands, and they had the same sort of problem here. They had about 500 samurai against several thousand regular troops, and they had no chance of winning.
Yeah. But Aldrin has the ultimate plan.
Yeah, they did some battle strategies.
Yeah, where he suggests...
Do not go into it. We're going to be...
I know, but he suggests to try to use the enemy's weakness, their confidence, against them.
Yeah, exactly right. No, we won't go into too much because it's a long battle and it'll be an even longer podcast.
Yeah. Anyway, Aldrin does get approached by Taka, who offers the red armor
her dead husband
as a bit of a for him to honor her late husband, but
by
also
wearing his armor into battle.
Yeah, so she helps him dress, and we get a tender moment where they kiss, very sweetly.
Just a cute, not a sleazy, sexy one, just a nice, loving kiss. Yeah,
and then he walks out, and we see him in the armor, and one of these soldiers, the mean one, he approaches him and just looks at him and just nods.
And he makes sure he's got on right, and he said, "Follow me." Yeah, they go into battle.
He approaches Kasimoto, and he gives him a sword with the etchings on it that says, "I know the way of the warrior."
Something like that.
Something sentimental.
He gave his own special, specially made sword of his own engraving on it.
Yeah, they then go into battle, and there they confront the enemy, one-on-one.
There was several waves. We didn't go into
Before
what
we
they
get
did.
to that, the colonel, who's his old colonel, looks at him and says, "Oh my gosh!" Like he's realized he's wearing the red armor, and
he's joined them.
And he then says, "We won't show you any quarter."
Well, show no quarter in battle.
Oh, give me a break.
He didn't care anyway.
Anyway,
he was going to die anyway, or kill him in battle, and
yeah. And of course, they said that if you surrender, we will be lenient, yada yada yada, the usual crap.
But he's seen him before, so he knows he can't be trusted.
Yeah, they then head back to the group, and Cosimoto says, "Well, they won't surrender." That's a joke.
That was quite humorous.
And
they had a bit of a chuckle.
Aldrin then hands the writer his notes from his time with the samurai.
You might be able to use these in your book.
And he's got also some pictures of the samurais, this clans.
Yeah, so
he could probably accompany those into his book too, hopefully.
So it'd be a good book.
So he heads off on a high hill to watch what occurs.
Yeah, he's not a soldier. So the point is, do not go into the soldier. Did you say they use some really, really good battle tactics?
Yeah, they used some really good tactics. The first one was pretty interesting, where they shoot a few of the cannons off, and they pretended to run away. And then and
they set fires and made smoke screens and stuff and different things, and set fire to some of the troops who were going to attack them. Then they killed quite a few people on the first wave.
Yeah, it was clever. And eventually...
Scared the crap out of them. So what the hell are they doing? Because they had Algren helping them. His battle tactics.
Yeah.
And he knew what the American guy was going to do.
See, the Emperor's offsider. He got too confident, thinking that the first round was going to be easy, but it actually wasn't.
And the American guy, the colonel or whatever, said, "Hey, let's just do a little bit of the time here." And the other guy, the Japanese guy, said, "No, let's send them all in."
Yeah, send in the fleet.
And they sent them all in there and had massive battles going on. And even though the odds were against them...
I was agreeing with you.
The samurai were gradually decimated. And only a couple... Well, only two we saw still alive were Katsumoto and Tom Cruise, Algren, in the middle of the battlefield.
Yeah.
And
I liked it when Algren takes his samurai sword and plunges it into his colonel's heart.
I was jumping ahead here too. They actually that colonel, whatever, he was killed most dramatically. But that Japanese guy on the hill leading the army, the Emperor's second, his right-hand man, got these Gatling guns out and started shooting the remaining samurai running across the field. Now, these guys had swords and bows and arrows and nothing else. This guy's using Gatling guns.
Yeah, and one of the guys,
mongrel.
I think the captain, it's the captain.
Yeah, the captain,
he looked unnerved by the fact they got the upper hand, and he tells the men to stop shooting. And we notice that Katsumoto is slowly dying.
He got several bullet holes in him. Yeah.
And he asks Algren to end his life.
Helping to end his life.
So he takes Katsumoto's sword and plunges it into his chest.
No, he helped Katsumoto kneel down. He's laying down on the ground, get him up onto his knees, and to put his sword in front of his abdomen so he could lean forward and kill himself.
Yeah, and he looks up at the blossoms. He's thinking of the poem he was
writing.
writing.
A poem before he left. Yeah.
And he says, "Perfect," and he remarks to Algren, "We are all perfect."
Yeah.
And he dies, and then the rest of the army, the Japanese army, they all bow down
in sign of respect.
In sign of respect.
Because they knew who he was.
Yeah. Then we cut to an ambassador of the United States who's asking to sign a treaty with the Emperor.
And he's outsider.
And Algren approaches the Emperor. He kneels down really...
He has Katsumoto's sword. And he wants to present to him.
Yeah, and he tells him this is Katsumoto's sword. He wants you... that the spirit of the samurai be with you always. And he says that he hopes... Well, Katsumoto hopes that you will never forget... You will never forget the ancestors who held this sword.
Your culture and your history, yes.
And what these people died for in serving this, this sword. And and the Emperor takes the sword and he says, "You were with him to the end." It was very sad because he was very attached to his teacher, the samurai, Katsumoto. And he then looks up at the ambassador and his men, that he dreamed of a unified Japan that was strong, modern, and independent.
Yes.
But he says...
It's a buggy treaty.
And he says we should not forget who we are or where we come from.
So you can take the treaty.
He tells them, the ambassador, sorry, your treaty is not the best interest to my people.
And he got really annoyed and he stormed off.
Yes, and he got really angry.
Okay.
And then he gets annoyed. His offsider approaches him saying that this is...
I did it for Japan.
Yeah, but he says...
And the people and stuff.
Well, he says that he was threatening him that he'll take his land and his money and give it to the people as a gift. But... And
then he backed off. Oops, okay, but not...
Yeah. Then the Emperor kneels down to Algren and asks him, "Tell me how
he died. Katsumoto died. He says,
I'll tell you how he lived.
Then he smiled benignly at Algren, and we had a fade to black, did we?
No, we don't. No? The narrator goes on to say that was the end of the samurai, and he says that legends like men will whatever it
Blah,
goes
blah,
on.
blah.
And he tells about how Aldrin either died from his wounds.
They didn't know. The story goes he either went back to America,
or went back to America,
or he died of his wounds, or he went back up into the hills to go back to Takata.
Yeah, and I like to think the book that the little guy wrote, I like to think it would have gone on to be a bestseller.
Yeah. Okay, fade to black now.
Then we fade to black.
Now, I was going to do a lot of production chit-chat and different things, but someone talks too much sometimes. Now, okay, we've already said it was filmed in New Zealand, in the Taranaki region. Taranaki, yeah.
Sounds very...
reason why, because Mount Egmont, Mount Taranaki, resembles Mount Fuji. So in the background, has similar looking mountains. So
cool.
it made it very good, yeah. So I did that. Several village scenes were shot on the Warner Studios in Burbank, California.
Mount Taranaki. It sounds very...
That's a mountain.
It sounds very, very Japanese or something.
Taranaki is a Maori word, Maori word, actually Maori. Some people call it Maori, it's actually Maori, I've been told by a New Zealander. Taranaki is a word they use.
The film in Taranaki consists with a summer of many days without rain. To the benefit of the film crew, Taranaki locals used the term samurai summer as reference for a summer with many clear days.
Yes, whatever.
Meaning this was, in other words, there was no rain, technically. Well,
some scenes were shot in Kyoto and Himeji in Japan as well, sorry, but I don't know what shots they were.
Sweet.
Now, blah, 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 blah. Tom Cruise did his own stunts.
Sweet.
So he did the sword fighting, got beaten up.
You mean the stick that hit him on the back would have...
Yeah, whatever.
Really...
They stabbed him a few times. No, maybe not. Whatever. I can't talk too much here because someone talked too much before. And I'm just going through my notes here quickly. No, don't talk about that. I said that part before. Reception will do that now. Most of the critics were good. Even the Japanese critics were good. They were quite favourable. However, they said they made they romanticised it a bit too much to make it look like the romanticised version of the samurai instead of the real version where they were actually a bit more brutal, not quite so spiritual and power hungry. But they were given that they were a ruling class for many years, and they did gain a lot of power.
Yeah, well, considering the other movies I have seen about samurais or warriors before this one, most of those ones dabbled with, making out that martial arts was all about magic and stuff like that. Like Monkey Magic, if you ever watched that TV series.
Oh, I did. Well, you did. No, maybe other people did. There was one thing, the critics, historian type thing, criticism. I know it was a Tom Cruise movie.
Uh-huh.
Right? And he was sort of the main star. Mm-hmm. But you would have thought, it was called The Last Samurai.
Right.
You would have thought they would have had Ken Watanabe on there with him. Because he was the last samurai. Tom Cruise wasn't the last samurai. Ken Watanabe was the last samurai.
Well, I figured that.
He wasn't on the poster. And that's a bit of a critic. Oh, the white guy. And that's the Japanese talk about, the white American guy. What about the Japanese guy who was actually the last samurai?
Well, technically it's focused on, it's sort of from Tom Cruise's perspective.
From the Japanese perspective here.
I know.
They could have had them both on it.
True.
They were the two main leads.
I see
they
what
had
you mean.
Tom Cruise and Ken Watanabe. His name was on the bottom of the poster.
I get it.
Then that was. I'm not saying Tom Cruise was the main star, but it was about the Last Samurai, and the Last Samurai guy wasn't even on the poster.
I know.
So it's marketing, but I think to a certain degree, it was an insult to Ken Watanabe and the Japanese people. How's that? That's my take on it as well. Because, if you had a movie about Sarah Stephenson, and you had a poster and Sarah wasn't on the poster, Hey? Right? Okay, fine. You get the idea? Right. Okay. They should have both been on a poster.
I always thought that
Yeah.
Tom Cruise's character was the Last Samurai, even though
No,
he was...
he wasn't the samurai. He worked with the samurai. He played with the kiddies. He learnt their ways. He wasn't a samurai. He helped the samurai. The last samurai was Ken Watanabe.
Well,
and
they did say the last...
And he should have been...
They did say,
Yeah.
the narrator did say the legacy of the samurai is ended, or the time of the samurai was over, also because Aldrin, while he trained with the samurai, he and all that stuff, and became part of their community in the end, all that stuff.
Here it is. I found it in my notes here. David Sorota at Salon saw the film as yet another film presenting the white Union Army official as personally embodying the North Civil War effort to liberate people of colour, and criticising the release poster as a not so subtle message encouraging audiences to perceive the white guy and not a Japanese person as the last great leader of the ancient Japanese culture. And that's what I'm saying. They looked at it that way, and I can understand what they're coming from. It was about the Last Samurai, and they didn't put him on the poster.
That's tragic.
They should have had both on. Tom Cruise and the other star, which is Ken, should have been on the same poster.
Yeah, Ken was also in the Memories of a Geisha that was done in 2005.
Yeah, that's why he played that nice guy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy who she sort of fell in love with. Mm-hmm. He gets around for different
Chairman,
movies.
whatever.
Yeah.
I thought he was great in that movie too. He was very nice and charming, and I guess I like him. I like him in this movie
it's
too.
Sort of like, where's that little? Some guy, actors like Ken, Japanese, obviously. Okay, well.
Look at this. As of 2021, featuring Ken, he also got nominated for his performance.
Yeah,
which is good.
He's a very good actor.
So he's recognised for his
when you get when you do ethnic movies, like this one here, a good example. They had Japanese playing Japanese. They didn't have Chinese playing Japanese, or Hawaiians, or some guy who looks vaguely like a Japanese. They used Japanese people to play Japanese. That sort of gives a sense of realism.
I agree with you there.
And they most of those swordsmen that you saw, the samurai guys, they were Japanese. Martial arts instructors and whatever, and they knew what they're doing.
Yeah, I get. I do understand what you're telling, and I know what they're talking about here. But it's mostly focused on Aldrin's perspective throughout this movie.
But the movie was not called Aldrin Trip to Japan. It was called The Last Samurai.
I know that.
About him interacting with the samurai leader.
I know.
Who wasn't on the poster. They're saying, hey, what about, it could have been Ken Watanabe on the poster, or both of them on the poster.
If there was more, if they had more stage time with Ken, obviously, maybe it would have made a bigger difference.
Who was the main star?
Tom Cruise.
Who's the second main star?
Ken, obviously.
And they couldn't say, Tom, move across the tracks and put Ken next to you.
It doesn't stop there. I mean, the Billy Connolly, who had only one scene.
Yeah, but he wasn't the main star.
He appeared in the credits as a co-star, even though he only appeared, say, in one scene.
If Ken Watanabe's role wasn't in there, it wouldn't have been a bloody movie. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So anyway, they did make a mistake there.
And of course, Timothy Spell, he was most likely made appearances, say, in the beginning and to the end, towards the end.
No, he's just an also-ran. Nothing wrong, Timothy.
I did think he was an interesting character, and I like to think in the epilogue, if there was an epilogue to this movie. I mean, I know some of you guys out there keep saying it's only a movie, there's no epilogue. I get a lot of...
Sometimes there's a wind down of an epilogue. Yeah,
see, that a lot of people out there who continue to go rant and rave about movie, this is just a movie. No need to read too much into it. Well, I like to think that the little guy who was the writer guy, I like to think his book would have gone on to become a bestseller.
There would have been somebody like him writing about that period. you would like to think.
I like to imagine.
And they would have wrote a book on it. Yeah. Anyway, here's it. Now, let's grade it. And by the way, it is available for sale on eBay and Amazon, and it's also rentable through Amazon. I'm going to rate this one. I don't often give it 10, but there's a lot of work being put in this movie. Even though it might not be culturally accurate, everything else is fine.
Yeah.
The martial arts bit, sword play, the acting, the scenes, storyline's good. I like it. I'm going to give it a 10. I don't often do that.
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 too.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was pretty cool, and despite the major talk about it, I do think it was an interesting story, and I kind of enjoyed it. I mean, it's different from other martial artist movies, I granted, because I know it's romanticized.
Well, they're all romantic. Every movie's romanticized to a certain degree.
And but it's better than the alternative that people make out that martial arts is like a supernatural power.
It's not, it's all like boxing, wrestling, but it's the next level. They've trained their bodies harder to do more things.
Because
that's all it is.
When you think about those ones that make out that martial arts is like a special, fighting magic thing that they do in some of the movies. I'm not judging those movies too much. I'm not saying that they're bad.
It's fictional stuff.
But this is a better approach to the story, where an outsider is welcomed and treated, respectably, and he learns their ways in an interesting setting. In a nice
Anyway.
And it's different from what he considered army life in America. He thought it was a horrible time, but when he was in Japan, he learned that to put aside the past and try to live respectably.
He learned to relax and meditate and clear his mind, and his first time was ever at peace.
Yeah, so it was a nice type of story.
See, things like martial arts, a lot of people have told me, over the years, that it's not a sport.
No,
it's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. It is, you train your body to a level, and you're not training yourself to attack.
No.
You're training yourself to defend yourself. Which will obviously, if some of you are being attacked, you're going to beat the snot out of the other person if you have to, if that's the end of the story. But the idea is not to attack, it's to defend. Mm-hmm. And the spirituality part that I believe the Asian people put into it, we don't get in the training out here in Australia or probably in America. It's a case of, here's the movements, let's train your body up. I don't do the spiritual side. The Japanese, Chinese might have something. The Filipinos might do something. There's a spiritual side as well people don't know about in the Western civilization.
Yeah.
And it's about the way of life, their commitment to life. Lifestyle, attitude, values, whatever.
Yeah, there's some interesting theories about this stuff, and some of it, I think, it's practiced in actual martial arts, like a peace, a bit of, respecting life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, you look in the
knowing when to fight, not
look at
stuff.
the Blade Runner, Harrison Ford movie. Right at the end, Rutger Hauer, when he was dying, he valued life more than anything. Mm-hmm. And he was a replicant. He was out there killing people, defending himself. He was a nasty piece. And at the end, he valued life, all life, anyone's life. So he saved Harrison Ford.
Yeah, see,
he was the guy who was trying to kill him.
See, in martial arts, they always teach you about valuing life and using martial arts as the interesting rule about martial arts is to always use it for defense only.
Defense and protection. Protection. Yeah. Anyway, it's getting a bit too long here.
I know. I mean, when it comes to martial arts, I seem to know a little bit more than I can tell. Although a lot of people have asked me over the years, they've asked me to teach them, but I'm not a teacher.
No.
I could teach you about respecting each other and trying to be respectful to one another, but other than that...
Actually, for those of you who are Christians out there, remember in the Bible, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Same sort of thing in the martial arts sort of thing.
Yeah.
Treat people people the way you want to get treated. And that's it, yeah. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so...
And say Buddhism's the same thing, I think, too.
Yeah, Buddhism, I think, practices self-discipline and...
Selflessness.
And selflessness.
Selflessness means I'm not worth anything, the person next to me is worth more than me, so I'll look after them, and that person will look after me. You don't look after yourself first, you look after your neighbour.
Okay, anyway, that's about it for us tonight, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
I had a wonderful time.
And we'll let you know what we're going to be doing for our next one. Bye for now.
Hope's goodie. Hope's a good one. Bye.
Bye.